oh, Zelensky stole $50 million from what's it called, and we're not giving money to you. I mean, a negative atmosphere towards Ukraine. If you see it day in day out, it becomes that's that cult mentality where they brainwash you to believing it's true. Hey guys, Philip,
My
Yuri, how are you?
friend,
Welcome, guys.
how are you, love?
I'm good.
It's
Slava
lovely to see
Ukraini.
you.
Yeah,
Hi,
Herojam
Jonathan. Pleasure
Slava.
to meet you guys.
hi there. Great to meet you.
Great
Yeah,
seeing you.
first time, I think.
I think so, yes, Jonathan. I think it's the first time. Definitely pleasure to meet you. Thank you, Yuri, for having me. I apologize for the tire, but I'm in Washington, D.C., and my daughter say hi. Say hi. So I'm
Send
kind
hello
of,
to your uncle.
please, yeah, he's Alexander. Definitely. So how are you
Well,
guys? What's going on?
we're doing great. We're
Great.
doing a bit of a fundraiser for Ukraine, but also wanted to, I
Oh,
guess,
awesome.
take advantage of your expertise and knowledge. Of course, you are running for Congress, which is really exciting. But so I guess if you would wanted to start by sharing what made you want to do it.
Oh, well, thank you guys for having me. But by the way, everybody that is supporting Ukraine, God bless each and every one of you, because Ukraine needs every single support it needs right now, especially the past 36 hours. If you've seen the diabolical attacks onto Ukraine, Kiev, Odessa, double taps, and so on.
It
The-
wasn't a lot of fun, Lev.
I know, I know. I was on the phone with Docs. I actually wrote a letter today on my Substack about it. Where we do a show with Kevin Harbaugh. Actually, right now we're partnering up with Midas actually to give it a bigger exposure of Voice from Ukraine, to be able to give people an inside look of what really is happening. Because right now, the media is all bunched up with what's happening in the Middle East, Iran, and everything else, and that is
I'm only
Putin's game.
I'm always just a phone call away, Lev,
Oh no, you're absolutely
or an
Philip. We're
email.
good.
I'm at your
Yeah.
disposal 100%.
We're actually planning on we're trying to put together a State Department trip on in May. We're trying to figure out to go down to Ukraine to start making some changes. But Congress, great question. Not a political guy, as you guys know. Those of you that know me, I'm as far from politics as possible, but ended up getting involved in politics because of my relationship with Donald Trump, because of him sending me to Ukraine, and having me do basically start up a shadow diplomacy for him, a shadow diplomacy that he currently still controls and runs, but just has different people in there. Instead of Lev Parnas and Rudy Giuliani, now you have Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, and it's basically at the end of the day the same plan, same motives, and same apparatus and same people behind the scenes. Uh, I started speaking out after my arrest, as you guys know, and as we keep speaking truth to power. I've testified in Congress under oath. I've had a documentary made. I wrote a book, and I have a major big platform on Substack, YouTube, and other social media where I go every day, break news, talk about all the corruption that's going on, all the problems. But the problem is that uh, not enough people hear about it, not enough people see about it, and really we're not able to make change. And I'm not looking to be a social media guy. I'm looking to actually make change. And I sat down with my wife, my family, and we try to figure out what's the best way we could help our country at a time like this. And being in a position where I am, lived through what I lived through, seen what I seen, and very few people have seen the corruption from the inside the way I've seen it, being in the Trump first administration. And then most of the players played out right now are the same people in the his second administration. What you're seeing be played out in Venezuela, those are some of my ex-partners that were in the first administration with them that are still continuously working at the deals in Venezuela. Obviously, you guys know my connections overseas in Russia, Ukraine, and all the oligarchy there is one of the reasons Trump sent me over there and put pressure on Zelensky, because of my background, going back all the way to the 90s, and growing up in that world. So I decided that the best way I could help my country, the best way I could help Ukraine, the world, is by speaking truth to power in a place where it matters, and that's in Washington D.C., Congress, Senate, and I decided to run for the 27th district of Florida. It's a unique district made up of immigrants like myself, even though they might not be from Russia or Ukraine or Eastern Europe. They're immigrants that have gone through the same type of dictatorship, authoritarianship, survivalship that we have gone. grown up in the Soviet Union and places like that, Venezuela, Colombia, Cuba, same type of individuals, and something that Trump is right now using as a main platform with Vladimir Putin to be able to exploit and use this corruption power. So that's why I threw my hat in the ring, and that's why this race is not just for the 27th District of Florida, but I'm also running a national campaign to be able to help all the Democratic leadership across the nation. But I want to also make it clear that I'm not a establishment Democrat. I am not running on behalf of Chuck Schumer or Senator Jeffries or any of these guys. The establishment needs to go. This is, I'm running for a new Democratic Party, a Democratic Party that needs leaders, people that are willing to stand up, fighters, young blood, not the old corruption that's been sitting there for 30, 40 years, making backroom deals behind themselves and, using that money to be able to enrich themselves in the trading. So that's the main reason I chose to run.
Lev, I follow you. I follow Anthony Scaramucci to try and get an idea of what's going on in Trump's head. They seem to be, you and he seem to be, closer in terms of interpreting what may be going on and what may be driving some of the decisions. It seems that the tools of traditional politics are just not going to work. And of course, things like New York Times and so on will default to a sort of almost a sane washing or a normalization, but they'll miss what's actually going on, the real intentions. Vis-a-vis Ukraine, is your impression that Trump is simply looking for deals, looking for grift, looking for self-interest, or is there something more? Is he looking to bring about a situation where Ukraine needs to capitulate, that Ukraine is going to be defeated? Because that, of course, is the Russian aim. But I can't figure out whether he's aligned with that or whether he's just looking for a situation where he can potentially benefit.
Great question, Jonathan. And that's something I speak about all the time because I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding, misconstruction of what Donald Trump actually thinks of Ukraine. And I speak about it all the time, and I try to, me and Yuri have done plenty of shows where we go on Ukrainian channels, and I told the people even before Trump got elected, I said, he is not a friend to Ukraine. Donald Trump has never been a friend to Ukraine. Donald Trump didn't know where Ukraine existed on the map. He considered Ukrainians and Russians the same people as no, you can't have anymore. Hold on a second. Okay, pretend. I'm sorry, guys. So Donald Trump, in his first administration, I was the person that actually told him about Ukraine, that Ukraine are fighters, and started the whole thing. Ukraine has a very sour taste in Donald Trump's mouth that it's beyond actual financial issues. It's the whole post 2016 Russiagate. It's Rudy Giuliani and people in his orbit at that time. And I was one of them. As part of manipulating and explaining to Trump that it wasn't the Russians that were involved. It was basically those corrupt Ukrainians that were involved with the corrupt Democratic leadership and the deep state that internally interfered into the election and stole the information and did everything to hurt you and blame the Russians. And for Trump, Russiagate has become like a sticking point, as you guys could see, and that actually drove his friendship and to what we're seeing with Putin. Because, well, a lot of people don't know, in the first administration, Trump had no relationship with Putin. There were people on the inside of Trump's orbit, like Manafort, others, people like myself that had connections overseas, and even people like Michael Cohen and, even his own son, Don Jr. and others had more connections to people in that world. Donald Trump was just more the figure face, but he had no actual relationship with Putin. He admired Putin. He looked up to him because, Donald Trump grew up in that stronghold man type of era where first he lived under his dictatorship, under his father, friend. After that, he got his mentor became Roy Cohen, who was a famous mafia lawyer, and then passed away. And, he introduced him to that world of the underworld, the underbelly, and understanding. That's why you see a lot of what Trump does is like a mobster. People say the media compares him to it because they, a lot of people have never met a mobster around the world or around the country. A lot of people have never been around, so they have no understanding. They have the perception of television and and thinking, oh, it's just basically a comparison. But no, Donald Trump is a real mobster. He grew up in the 70s around people like Fat Tony Salerno, who ran the Genovese crime family, and others like Sammy the Bull Gravano, John Gotti, to be able to build the buildings and do the things he did in the New York City and also in his casinos in New Jersey. So Donald Trump grew up around that world, but the dictatorship world was a lot farther away. He was a lot more powerful. Donald Trump was a local guy. He was a New York guy, and he was always took that as an anger because he would always be looked down at Davos. He was never invited to Davos, for instance, or where all the financial billionaires would meet up. He was always, shunned by the world, and he had a chip on the shoulder. That type of chip on the shoulder that he's the great Donald Trump. So when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, it's very simple. It's not even complicated. He looks at Russia as a strong, powerful country. He still looks at it going back to the Soviet Union times. That's what's embedded in his head, and that's what people around him have convinced him into it, that the media doesn't know the power of Russia. Basically, Russia is stronger, more powerful than it really is. And he believes in it. And he truly believes that Ukraine is not that are weaklings. He looks at them as second class people. He doesn't, he doesn't look at them on the same level as Russians do. So because of that, it's, he's basically waiting for, he's been promised this whole year by Dmitriev, by Putin, by others, by Witkoff and others, that Russia would already take over Ukraine. And that's his biggest frustration. Not that, the fact that he's having issues with, what's it called, Iran. His biggest frustration is that Putin has not done what he promised him and taken over Ukraine already, because strategically that wouldn't have allowed what's taking place in Iran if Putin would have done what he have done. And make a long story short, Trump is not a friend to Ukraine. He never was, though I don't think he ever will be. I think he's looking at Ukraine as basically something that is going to fall. It's just a matter of time. And then he's going to be able to go in there with his big corporate, donors that are going to be able to take over from rebuilding the real estate, energy, minerals. And the crazy part, it's all being coordinated with the Russians, because at the end of the day, it's Kushner and Witkoff that are coordinated with Kirill Dmitriev through Putin of how even the rebuildment of Ukraine is going to go. So that's the head they're on.
And who do you recommend? Who do you think actually sort of gets the Trump mindset, gets the sort of the thought processes there? Because there are a couple of people. There's Michael Cohen, of course. There's Michael Wolff, of course, the biographer. Anthony Scaramucci. They all seem to sort of claim sort of insider knowledge, let's say, of his thought processes. Do you think those are reliable sources? Or?
Absolutely not. Those are, two of the three are grifters and garbage, and that I'm exposing here, that are, Michael Wolff and Michael Cohen. First of all, they don't know Donald Trump. They know the old Donald Trump. They have not been around Donald Trump for, over a decade. Michael Cohen, knows Donald Trump from the early, 2000s when he was working for him as a fixer. And that's all he knows. He doesn't know the Donald Trump prior to that, and doesn't know the Donald Trump after he came into office, because when Donald Trump came into office, he got rid of Michael Cohen. And he has changed in the past 10 years drastically. He's not the same Donald Trump that you saw in 2015 that was running for office. So to have, and Michael Wolff is another character. Michael Wolff was not a Donald Trump, somebody that knew Donald Trump as well as he knew as Epstein and Bannon, and who was working behind the scenes. And that's some of the stuff that we've been uncovering in the Epstein files. I work very closely with the House Judiciary Committee here on the Hill in the White House. And I could tell you the fact that Michael Wolff was, with Steve Bannon playing, and with Epstein playing Donald Trump. So these people really, Anthony Scaramucci also, I know Mooch, he's a good guy. Out of the three of them, Mooch is solid. Me and him actually were in Israel back in 2018 when he just was still supporting Trump. And he knows, I'll tell you, because he has a pulse of the people around him from the financial world. I'd say he has a pretty good, Mooch has definitely a good inside track because of the people he's around, because it's not just Trump. You have to, I always say, Trump is a phenomenon. He's just a person, but there's also the people that make him who he is, and the people that made Hitler who he was, the people that made Mussolini who he was, is all the enablers. It's the people that are now around him that are allowing him to do it, because if they would just shut him down, he wouldn't be able to do what he does. If they would just, if all of a sudden Congress and the Senate turned around and said, no, we're going to impeach you, he wouldn't even be around here right now. So the fact that he is being enabled by all of these, nuts in our society that are allowing him to do these type of right wing, white Christian national movement type of situations. I mean, I think. That's a big problem. But yeah, out of the three of them, I think Mooch would say has the closest from the financial. But I don't think, it's definitely Michael Cohen, Michael Wolff. I have no idea. They're just grifters on platforms trying to pretend sell books and movies talking about how they knew him from 10 years ago. But in the meantime, if you really take a look at people like Michael Wolff and Michael Cohen, they have never done and never spoke out against Donald Trump. Michael Cohen is actually now going on a campaign talking about how he was coerced by Letitia James and to speak up against Donald Trump. So these are people that are, were as dirty as Trump in his world, and they keep manipulating the system. So they don't know. The people that know Donald Trump are very few and far right now, because it's a different animal. The beast that was even in 2015, 16 is not the same. The reason why I know Donald Trump so well, not because I only spent so much time with him while he was already in the White House. I was the last person with him. So that's the difference between me and Michael Wolff. They were there in the past. They could talk about what he did 20, 30 years ago. They weren't with him, and they were not around what was going on while he was in the White House, which I was. Then, after he left the White House, and then his second reign coming back in the White House, also his circle tightened. And when the circle tightened, that's why most of the, information that you're hearing from people, sources, and that is all false, because you're seeing that it's part of a, part of a organized campaign where they leak certain information, especially to be able to distract from what really is happening. The reason why I'm different is not only because I was with him during the White House, but because when I was there, I was the gatekeeper between Trump, Rudy, and I allowed a lot of people to get into a lot of positions that they are currently still in, and that are very, how do you say, scared for people to find out that I put them there, or they have any association with me, because of the wrath that they would get to Trump. So because of that, I still have relationships all over Trump world and internationally that I'm able to still break and report some of the stuff.
I have a couple of questions, but I gotta say, Lev, you do such an amazing job of like setting things up, and then you just explain it, and I'm going, well, I guess that answered that question. But do you think that I think one of the big things we're trying to figure out with Trump is to what extent he's motivated by fear of what Putin may have in his folder in the Trump file, of course, perhaps probably with Epstein's help. Or to what extent is he motivated by the financial rewards of Dmitriev and so on? How does that balance out in his behavior, do you find?
Great question. I think it's a combination. Well, I definitely know it's a combination. The fear part of it is not something that drives him. It's more the financial part of it that drives him. The fear is more of like, he knows it's out there. You know what I'm saying to you? There was a time, I don't remember if we even did this. I think we spoke about one of your shows, Yuri, even a few months back, if I don't remember. But there was a time where they actually started having these conversations, and through Witkoff, it was, Dmitriev at one point basically spilled some of the tea and gave information having to do with Epstein files. Not so much the Epstein files, but see, that's what people understand, is that Donald Trump was being basically followed, looked at, from the day he married Ivana Trump. Since from there on, he was always part of a group of people that the KGB always try to always have information. Influential people around the United States. I mean, it still happens. It's nothing new. It's not. They just hit the jackpot by him getting into the White House. They never assumed that they could have such a corrupt, such somebody that has all of these, points on it to be able to get to the White House. So when you look at all of those points, you start to see a man that is really, what is Donald Trump about? It's about money, power, finance. That is why he became such a perfect agent for Russia. When I say agent, it's a lot of different ways you could word that. Somebody that works as an officer, somebody that just gives information. But Donald Trump was definitely working with the Russian knowingly or unknowingly through the early years of his life. The other part is a lot of people in Donald Trump's life, like Epstein, like Howard Lutnick, like Steve Witkoff, had their own relationships in the early 90s with this Russian oligarchy. Because if you remember and recall, that's how Putin and Russia, when the fall of the Soviet Union, one of the plans was to take all the funds and money that they had were taken into these oligarchs and spread them all over the world to start investing, buying all of these very specific properties, energy companies, coal companies, specific real estate properties and all of that, to be able to intertwine themselves into world society where eventually they would have a say in a lot of things. Through that, they started using foreign money to be able to infiltrate not only the UK, but also the United States through the lobbyist systems, through the sport, putting money through these super PACs, the special interest type of groups, to be able to start manipulating and using the congressional people and leadership for what Russia and their people need. So for Trump, it's both. It's a combination of money, and that's what drives him to do it. But at the end of the day, he knows that him and Putin are tied at the hip, because there's also information, and not just with the Epstein files. Remember, if you take a look at Trump's history, every single time he got bailed out when it came financially, from 87 to 96 to 2000, all of those times came from Russian money. It came from Russian oligarchy. All the people surrounding Donald Trump, like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, all of these people, also all of their companies, if you take a look at the beginning of their companies, also came from a lot, had to do with Russian oligarchy money. And that's where the real ties and links them, because it starts financially, but then, obviously these people have to have certain, blackmail over each other to be able to run. That's the world it is. That's why I call it shadow diplomacy.
And I'll pass the ball quickly, but I just wanted to follow up on what Lev just said, because I've lived in Europe for many, many decades, and you have seen a steady growth, or you did see before Ukraine, Russian money. I mean, you walk through Knightsbridge in London, and you used to only hear Gulf Arab, speaking Arabic. Increasingly, you started to hear Russian. The largest Russian Orthodox church outside of the former Soviet Union is in Paris. How many inhabitants, how many renters in the various levels of Trump Tower were Russian oligarch money? We thought at the end of the Cold War that it would be our system that would go west. After all, we won the Cold War, right? So it would be democracy, free markets, things of that nature. What really happened, and what I think we have to come to terms with, and many already have, but I think more do, is that instead of our system going west after the end of the Cold War, their corruption came. I'm sorry, instead of our system going east, their corruption came west, and it's endemic. It's absolutely everywhere. So
you still hear those voices in
right.
Mayfair, Knightsbridge, and Chelsea.
I'm
There's
sure
a lot
you
of
do.
Russian voices
sure
there.
You do.
Marijuana is not even, that's nothing. I mean, you guys got to remember, look,
I know it's
one of the guys, I'm just, one of the guys that I was actually dealing with, Trump sent me to deal with, that was working with, was, I don't know if you remember, was Dmitry Firtash. Dmitry Firtash, is one of the most richest, most powerful guy. He controls probably over 30% of all the oil and gas that are dealt with in Eastern Europe. And just so you understand, before he got arrested, he controlled the UK. He owned the parliament. He owned so it's not just properties. It's they infiltrated themselves into the international, and which is more even important, and why we're seeing what we're seeing today into U.S. politics. Over the years, the difference between the Chinese and other foreign assets, what the Russians were a lot smarter when they got to it, is they were able to figure out that Americans were very easily bribed, very wanted it, but they were scared of it. And Russians, there's no better people than the Russians, Eastern Europeans, that know, because their whole culture is worked off of give and take, bribe, quid pro quo, and that type of scenario. So when they started seeing the openness here in the United States, they say, well, listen, you don't have to give me a suitcase like you do in Ukraine or Russia. All you got to do is just pay my lobbyist. And my lobbyist, he knows how to do that, and they'll explain that. And these lobbyists, these high profile lawyers, taught they hired them, and they taught the Russians how to basically funnel money into here, and how to start controlling our congressmen, our senators, our lobbyists. So when people go out there, and concentrate on AIPAC and the Jewish lobbying system, they really have no idea who really controls a lot of it, and it is the Russians through even AIPAC and others, because their power, even in Israel. I mean, that's the one thing I talk about. Nobody even understands the relationship that Bibi Netanyahu and Putin have, and how they grew up through the same ranks, as one was growing up in Israel, the other one was growing up in Russia, and how much money in Israel really is, Russian oligarchy, Eastern European money. That's
started with the refuseniks.
Exactly. I mean, Trump sent me in 2018. If I didn't go in 2018 to help Bibi Netanyahu with the Russian vote, he would not be prime minister right now, because he was on the verge of losing in 2018. And Trump and Giuliani sent me there specifically to help with the Russian vote because it was so narrow. So there's a lot, it's a different world out there. There's a lot of analysts and pundits that go, say the same thing. And they try to regurgitate what the media talks about. But the real truth is that, there's an organized, coordinated situation going on between Putin, Trump, and other players in their region. Putin's leading the charge. Xi is involved also. That's why you could see, as Trump, just take a look. China, get all the oil you want, no problem. We're best friends. Venezuela, all of a sudden we're partners with Venezuela, selling oil all over the place, sending the money to Qatar. Iran's giving us presents of 10 oil ships. We don't know where that money went to, where that oil ships went to. But if you take a look at all these places, who really controlled them? Who was, if you take a look 6 years ago, 4 years ago, who was in charge of Venezuela? It was the Russians. Remember Igor Sechin, Rosneft, who was behind the, helping Maduro and all that. Same thing. Who is really, involved in these conversations? They say to you it's the Pakistanians when it comes to Iran. It's not. I mean, Pakistan has no influence over Iran. The biggest influence over Iran is the Russians and Putin and the game that he plays. And this is all very coordinated, manipulated. It was like, when they say in nature, when like what's it called? Say a butterfly, comes out of a cocoon, and and things like that. That was a type of like a process that went on over there in the Soviet Union. If that makes sense to you guys.
This is great, and it does, and we have also David with us, and we have Lev with us, and we have Philip Ittner with us, and Jonathan Fink and I, Yuri Rashkin, are the co-hosts. This is really incredible. Just glad to have so many people. And Lev, there's always more questions for you. We have a viewer who would love to hear more about Putin and Netanyahu relationship. If there's anything
I've been curious about that one, and this is I've got there's a YouTuber who I follow called Vlad Vexler, and he tries to describe it that if we see Netanyahu and Putin and Trump as being fully aligned or puppets of each other, we're kind of missing the picture. It's that it's this sort of, you say, it's, you know, they're allies in certain respects, and sometimes they may be adversaries, sometimes they're competing in certain areas, and sometimes they see advantage in alignment. I think that, because that doesn't really fit so much with 20th century politics, geopolitics so much, which is far more binary. I think we really have a problem in interpreting what's going on. So how does that work? And actually, how close is Putin and Netanyahu? And actually, is that completely the wrong way of looking at it in terms of proximity?
Oh, I think they're very close, even proximity. I mean, if you take a look at, first of all, I always talk about right now, one of the things I mentioned on my Substack when I talk to everybody, I said, look, the biggest problem we're having right now is you are having, when Witkoff and Kushner are sitting down with Putin, you have Steve Witkoff that's not representing the United States, he's representing Putin. You have Jared Kushner that's not representing the United States, he's representing Bibi Netanyahu. So there's really nobody representing the United States there. That's why you're seeing us being the leader of confusion, the craziness that's happening, and we're being there. So you have to go back to the 90s, you know, when the fall of the Soviet Union, at the same time while Putin and the KGB were trying to figure out how to save the KGB, which is now the FSB, to save the inner core, to stay alive and keep moving it. At the same time, Bibi Netanyahu was here in the United States, living on Kushner's couch and going, you know, to colleges here, you know, going through learning American society, graduating here, and building a very, very close relationship with the Kushners. I mean, he literally lived on their couch. Simultaneously, when then Bibi Netanyahu became, I think, first not prime minister, but to the United Nations or something, when he first got whatever his first position was. At the same time, I think Putin was at the time became the mayor of St. Petersburg, and it was already in Berezovsky, and all of them were already starting to push him. He was already in that frame where he was going to, you know, start moving up the ranks. As they start moving up the ranks, you have to understand, take it back even further, that going back to the 70s, even in the 70s, when Russia cleared out all their prisons, kind of, you know, it was not clearing out the prison, it was getting rid of all the Jews. And that's when you had a lot of, and that's when we immigrated in 1976. We were going all to Israel. And I was just fortunate that when we were in Italy, it was the 200th bicentennial of the United States, and I won a green card, and my family was able to go straight to the United States. But a lot of the people that Putin not Putin, the Russians let go in the 70s, immigrated to Israel. And in Israel, a lot of Russians became Israelis. You know, they got circumcised. They went through, you know, processes. I mean, and a lot of that had, you know, money has been flowing into Israel ever since. So that kind of circle between Bibi, Israel, America, and what's it called, Russia, has always been kind of behind the scenes, being dealt by powerful oligarchs, powerful work, and that's why Epstein. One of the reasons why Epstein is such a major player in a lot of these things, because he was a person that was working closely with the Israelis. At the same time, he was working closely with the Russians. As you can see, it's the same player, same connection, same years going on, and so many years. So when you say what is really the connection there, I mean, the bottom line is, if you take a look at the names of some of the most richest and most powerful people in Israel, you will see their ties go back to the Soviet Union. So
yeah, it
it's crazy.
started. It started kind of in the 70s with the refuseniks, and then post-Soviet, it was the oligarchs and the Siloviki, and those guys went down and made their ties with Mossad in Israel because of the ease of immigration to there. And then once we got a body politic that had been infiltrated by Russian intelligence in the White House, the ties now between these intelligence organizations, it should be pause for concern for all of us.
And a lot of them, I guess, come from the milieu of the sort of, what do you call it, the Voris v Zakonie. They come from that sort of semi-tolerated criminal milieu.
One thing I just want to touch on what David said quickly about why I wouldn't say Americans are naive, I'll just say to you this: Russians are strategic in when how they manipulate and how they could get their point across.
Yeah.
Also, the one thing that the Russians are very well at doing is finding weak spots in people, and most people have weak spots when it comes to power and money, and and a lot of the influencers that you're seeing push the reason why a lot of Americans are so pro Russia is because Russia was able to use not only social media with the bots, which you're 100% right. They had whole bot farms. Jason could probably talk even much better about that. But they also were able to infiltrate and buy people like Tim Pool, right wing, agencies here that were manipulating and pushing Russian propaganda, Russian information. They literally paid for it. Simultaneously, same thing they did in Congress. Like if you take a look at how the money flows went, and in the beginning, who was funding a lot of like Marjorie Taylor Greene's and the talking points and the stuff was going, it was also linked to a lot of Russian interference. So and when you as an American that lives in the Midwest, does not travel to all over the world, and doesn't get the same experience, understanding of how the world works, we're taught, as Americans, to listen to our Congress people, to our president, to our senators, to people of power, that we think we live in a place where they can't come out and just lie to us, and that's what we saw happen. What you saw happen in the first administration that is continuously going on now is you have people, powerful people like Lindsey Graham, senators, Congress people, Fox News, television personalities going out there and lying to the public, pushing Russian propaganda. So, just think about how they pushed the lies about the Bidens, which I'm the one that brought the lies. So I know their lies. I know how we were pushing them. And I'm just saying to you, and it's easy then to influence because most people don't sit there on TV and watch 20, go on these, shows and get so much involved. Most people are out there trying to make a living, trying to pay their bills, trying to pay the rent, and they come home, they watch a news cycle for 5-10 minutes, and if you see breaking news, Zelenskyy stole $50 million from what's it called, and we're not giving money to you. I mean, a negative atmosphere towards Ukraine. If you see it day in day out, it becomes that's that cult mentality where they brainwash you to believing it's true.
Let's unpack the book, The Dark Heart of Russia, because it helps to explain how we got to this point. It's edited by me, Jonathan Fink, the creator and host of the Silicon Curtain podcast. It's published this month by Gibson Square in London and is already available for order and delivery online, though officially the PR release will coincide with the Phantom Victory Day parade in Moscow on May the 9th. 30 interviews, 30 voices selected from over 1,000 interviews that have been conducted on this channel. And the lineup that we have put into this book reads like a who's who of the people Moscow would most like to silence. Bill Browder, Garry Kasparov, Fiona Hill, General David Petraeus, Peter Pomerantsev, Luke Harding, Mark Galeotti, Keir Giles, Anders Puck-Nielsen, Alexander Etkind, Yuri Ferzhtinsky, General Ben Hodges, and many, many more. And with a strong set of Ukrainian voices included, it could be no other way. Volodymyr Ermolenko, Alena Khaloshka, Sasha Dozhik, Olga Tokaryuk, and Alexander Romantsova, among several others. And the timing is not accidental. We are releasing this book precisely as the Kremlin's central myth, the myth of Russian victory, Russian strength, Russian inevitability, is being shredded in real time. Ukraine matters, and I think this book matters, and our support for Ukraine is the only way of stopping Russian imperialism from its eternal outward expansion and the destruction that it brings in its wake.